No one can escape their own frequency. The energy we send out will, sooner or later, return in its purest form as a lesson. The narcissist believes they have escaped consequence by rewriting the story, smearing others, and wearing the mask of the wounded victim. But truth needs no defense. It is patient, relentless, and waits for silence to rise again. Every time they close their eyes, in every pause between their fake laughter, truth whispers, "You have destroyed no one but yourself." Ismo, when they wound an innocent soul, they pierce what little remains of their own humanity. At first, they feel nothing, just a small thrill, a flicker of power's pleasure. But as the outer noise fades, as the people they once manipulated drift away, the emptiness begins to expand, not because they miss you, but because they can no longer face themselves. The universe does not need an avenger. It only lets them live long enough to hear the echo of their own actions, a sound that reverberates endlessly through their long, lonely nights. And you, the one once called weak, become living proof of the order of the cosmos. You do not react, do not explain, do not argue. You let silence become the language of justice. And that silence, light as air, still as meditation, is what terrifies them most. Because when you no longer react, they lose the supply that feeds their illusion. When you stand calmly in truth, your light exposes the darkness they've tried to hide. The universe doesn't speak in human words, but through the resonance of energy. When you choose not to fall into the spiral of hatred, you step outside the reach of karma itself. And when you reach the frequency of peace, the universe rearranges itself to make them learn the lesson you never had to teach. Your silence becomes a sacred mirror, forcing them to witness the ruins within their own soul. And then they finally understand, too late. What they thought was power was only a shadow. What they thought was victory was the beginning of the end. Because no one can destroy a soul that is real. The only one they ever destroyed was themselves. For a narcissist, control is the ritual that sustains the ego. They need to feel enthroned in other people's hearts like a deity, because deep down they know they are hollow. Every compliment, every fearful glance, every reaction from you is a temporary sedative for the invisible hunger gnawing at them. And you, the empath, the one who believes in basic goodness, mistake patience and love as ways to reach their true self. But that is the most dangerous illusion, because a narcissist doesn't want to be healed, they want to be deified. They carry a spiritual fracture, what Jung called the split between the ego and the self. This split compels them to endlessly seek external reflections to fill the inner void. Whenever someone loves them, they can't really feel the love. They only feel a fleeting confirmation that they still exist. But because the ego never knows what enough is, they must constantly sow chaos to ensure you keep revolving around them. To them, your pain is proof of their power. They think forgetting you is as simple as replacing you. They believe a new supply will erase the old memory, that another face, another voice, another body can fill the space you left. But what a narcissist never understands is that they aren't truly seeking someone new. They're chasing the feeling of power they lost with you. And that is the tragedy that begins their real collapse. On the surface, they appear ecstatic, radiant, more alive than ever. They post photos, tell stories, laugh loudly, living as if they've moved on. But deep inside, every embrace, every sweet word given to someone else only makes them feel more like they're performing. True connection cannot be manufactured from an old script. They've forgotten that what they had with you didn't come from games, but from authentic energy, something they can neither duplicate nor control. They keep searching like an addict chasing the first high. The new person is idealized, exalted as a soulmate, but after a few weeks or months, they begin to see the brutal truth. No one can recreate the special feeling they once had. Because what they miss isn't you, it's the powerful version of themselves they felt when they were with you. With someone new, that feeling is gone, only boredom and irritation remain. When the supply doesn't react as you did, doesn't love deeply, doesn't push back, the emptiness sets in. So they raise the dose, more lies, more manipulation, more roles. But like an actor performing the same play before an unmoved audience, they grow exhausted. No one looks at them the way you did. No one believes the hero-victim story they used to tell. Everything turns mechanical, loving to forget, touching to fill, laughing to cover up. Yet in every gesture, truth lurks. They no longer know who they are without someone to reflect them. The new person starts to sense that something is off. They feel pulled in, then drained. They realize they're not being loved, but used. And when the new person leaves, as all the others did, the narcissist falls into a deeper void than before. With every hunt for supply, they lose another piece of their soul. Every new relationship, instead of healing, widens the wound they've tried to hide. What they call love is only recycled emotion, repeating the same scripts with different faces, hoping for a different outcome. But the universe does not run on pretense. It sends them replicas of themselves, people who also lie, control, and are empty. And so the narcissist spirals: seek, idealize, devalue, discard emptiness, then seek again. There is no endpoint, only deepening fatigue. And it's then that they begin to miss you. Not the love, but the feeling of being seen and understood without having to perform. But they can't come back. The universe never allows anyone to return to the place where they betrayed truth. They watch from afar, see your peace, see your light no longer turn toward them, and in that silence they understand every new supply is only a counterfeit mirror that can never reflect their soul. The narcissist's greatest tragedy is not losing you, but realizing they could have the whole world and no longer be able to feel it. They traded the capacity to love for control, and now, standing among countless people, they are still alone. Every smile becomes a mask, every relationship another role in the endless play of escape. And the universe, as always, says nothing. It simply waits for them to repeat the cycle until their soul is spent, until they kneel and realize nothing can replace what is real. Only then do they see they never lost you because you left. They lost you because they forfeited the part of themselves that could love. When they have burned through every illusion of new supply, karma arrives not as a violent punishment, but as the slow disintegration of the very reality they once constructed. It doesn't strike like lightning. It seeps into every breath, every sleep, every lonely midnight. No one sees it, but they feel it. The world around them begins to mirror back the energy they once sowed. Those who admired now begin to doubt. Those they manipulated turn away, and the thing they fear most begins to happen. They gradually lose the ability to make others believe their story. Karma is not an invisible hand that retaliates. It is the process of balance. When a soul chooses deceit over honesty, control over love, the universe gradually reclaims what was borrowed. First, it takes away trust, not other people's, but their own. They start to distrust everyone, because they can only see the world through the lens of the betrayal they themselves committed. Every kind gaze is read as a scheme. Every sincere affection makes them suspicious. Thus, they imprison themselves in a world where love is no longer credible and intimacy becomes a threat. Next, karma removes peace. They may have everything: money, status, a new partner, but they can never rest within their own mind. Thoughts spin like echoes in a cavern. What if they find out the truth? What if someone retells that story? What if the new person realizes I'm not real? They begin to live in fear of exposure, abandonment, and being seen through. And soon that fear takes form because the universe always delivers people to the very thing they obsess over. When deceitful energy has accumulated long enough, it becomes a magnet that draws souls of the same frequency. Those they thought they could control turn into perfect reflections, also deceitful, also manipulative, also cold. For the first time, they taste the medicine they once made others swallow. At first, they react as always, constructing a narrative, playing the victim, convincing themselves they were betrayed. But this time is different. The universe will not let them run. Every excuse rings hollow. Because no one is listening, no one believes. Then karma removes meaning. What once excited them now tastes bland. Success no longer brings joy. Praise has no value. Even new relationships are only echoes in an empty room. They start to feel like a ghost, still moving, still speaking, but with the soul gone from the body. They live, but no longer feel alive. This is the deepest stage of karma, when a person is cut off from the self, pushed into a state of existence without true connection to anything. Narcissists think they can outrun consequences with cleverness, performance, and charm. But karma doesn't arrive via logic, it arrives via vibration. It forces them to face the very frequency they emitted: fear, loneliness, suspicion, and emptiness. The more they run, the faster it follows, because karma is not outside them, it is them. Every act, every word, every thought etches a mark into the soul, and at the right time the universe simply replays the film they shot themselves. When mirrors begin to appear around them, every person and every event repeats part of the lesson they refuse to learn. You cannot dominate others to feel valuable. They begin to realize their power existed only when someone else agreed to be hurt. But when no one is willing to suffer for them, that power collapses. They try to provoke old reactions, fights, triangulation, smearing, but everything slips through their fingers. No one is playing the game anymore. The universe has pulled the audience from the theater. That is when silence becomes the loudest scream. With no one left to control and no one to reflect them, they are forced to look into the inner void. They call it depression, call it being lost, but in truth it is the energy bill their soul must pay. Every time they laughed at another's pain has become a sleepless night. Every time they ignored real love has become inescapable loneliness. They once stole others' light, and now the light leaves them. The tragic part is that they understand this, yet cannot change. They no longer speak the language of love. For too long, they have only spoken the language of control. They cannot recognize the true self, being too accustomed to illusion. They no longer know how to pray, having replaced God with the ego. Thus karma does not only come to collect, it comes to teach. There is no power greater than honesty, no salvation stronger than humility. Meanwhile, you, the one once labeled victim, need not witness or gloat. You have risen beyond that frequency. You are not here to take revenge. You are here to prove that true love can exist without control, that compassion can coexist with boundaries. That is how you step out of the karmic loop while they remain trapped within it. In the end, karma doesn't come to destroy the narcissist, but to return them to truth. Most won't bear that light. They will run, deny, and keep performing until there is no audience, no role, not even a self. Then the universe closes the cycle with absolute silence, where a soul must hear its own echo, with nowhere left to hide and no one left to blame. Because cosmic justice never needs a court or witnesses. It only needs a soul to hear the scream inside the emptiness it created, and to realize, late but unmistakably, everything they tried to destroy in others was only the reflection of what they had already lost in themselves. But there is one thing you must remember. When karma begins to cast its shadow, the narcissist's first instinct is not remorse, but resistance. They do not know how to face truth. They only know how to control. And when they feel their power slipping, they run back to the most familiar place not out of love, but because you were once the brightest mirror, the place where they felt valuable, influential, entitled to exist. They don't seek you to love, they seek you to feel real. At first they reappear with a soft tone, short messages, harmless questions. How have you been? I just want to be sure you're still happy. On the surface it's concern. Underneath it's a test. They want to measure whether you still react, still tremble, still let them steer. If you so much as crack the door, they'll walk in as if nothing happened, slipping effortlessly into a role they've played their whole life. But this time, you are different. You no longer seek explanations. You no longer feel compelled to prove your worth. Your silence confuses them, because in their world, silence equals a vacuum of power. They need you to react, whether with love, anger, or hate, because any reaction fuels their existence. When you stop supplying that energy, their world begins to fracture. So they switch strategies. They start reviving memories, old photos, songs from your past, familiar metaphors. They invoke the old days to stir emotion. They know how to press on memory, pity, nostalgia, the soft places of an empath's heart. They hope you'll waver, That one moment of weakness will let them reinstall the role. But you've learned the lesson. Memory is no longer a path back. It's a chapter closed by the light of awareness. When emotional ploys fail, they try the victim role. They talk about loneliness, about no one understanding them, about mistakes they want to fix. They may say they've changed, that they're in therapy, that they've recognized your value, but that voice holds no sincerity, only the ego's panic in the face of losing control. They are not sorry for hurting you. They are sorry for losing the supply that sustained their illusion of power. When pity stops working, they grow bolder. They try to provoke opposite emotions: jealousy, doubt, competition. They might post photos with someone new to see if you react. They manufacture drama, pretend happiness, even flaunt a better-than-ever life. But the universe has its own way of exposing such theater. All that is false carries the timbre of emptiness, and you with awakened eyes no longer move to that tune. If they can't make you love, they will try to make you angry. If they can't make you remember, they will try to make you hurt. They spread rumors, invent stories, persuade others that you are the betrayer, the cause of all their pain. They want your attention, even hatred will do. In their mind, being hated is better than being forgotten. But when you remain silent and abstain from the game, they confront their worst nightmare: invisibility. Your silence is no longer a gap for them to fill, but a mirror that makes them tremble. For the first time, they see themselves without someone else's reaction. And what they see is not power, but a contorted soul, lost and adrift in a room echoing with its own voice. Every lie that once sustained them now becomes a shackle. Every tactic that once emboldened them turns into a crack in the mask. When all manipulation fails, they return to rage, angry that they cannot control you, angry that you are no longer influenced, angry at losing what cannot be replaced. They may say cruel things, probing at old wounds. But instead of reacting, you meet them with calm eyes. And that very calm is the final blade that pierces their illusion. In that moment, they understand there is no way back. This is the phase where the universe shows them the true nature of power. When it isn't shared, it becomes meaningless. In the past, they used your energy like wind to fan the flames of the ego. Now that fire is dying. Without wind, it burns itself. They grow anxious, erratic, impulsive. Some fall into depression. Others try to compensate with extremes: addiction, sex, money, performative religion. But whichever road they take, all paths lead to the same place, confronting themselves. Some will attempt one last hoover, feigning illness, staging an accident, using tragedy to tug at your compassion. They know an empath's heart softens at the sight of pain. But this time, you are different. Kindness loses meaning when it becomes a tool for exploitation. Saving someone who doesn't want to be saved is colluding with their self-destruction. And by not returning, you cut the karmic cycle not only for yourself, but for them as well. Because every time you react, you feed their illusion. But each time you stay silent, you offer them the only chance to truly awaken. Silence is the bitterest medicine, yet the only one that can cure a soul poisoned by pride. When there is no one left to mirror them, they are forced to look at their own darkness, the very thing they've been running from all their life. And in that isolation, the universe begins its most ruthless healing, showing them themselves. Many narcissists cannot endure this stage. Some plunge into despair, doing anything to draw energy back by any means. They may smear, beg, even threaten. But the universe will not allow destructive energy to keep feeding the ego. Every manipulation now becomes recoil, turning back to pierce them. The more they grasp for control, the more they lose it. The more they try to be seen, the more they are forgotten. And there lies the paradox they cannot bear. Your silence brings them to collapse without you lifting a finger. From there, the signs of breakdown appear. The light leaves their eyes, their smiles look forced, their energy grows heavy. The new partner begins to sense something is wrong and leaves in turn. The narcissist returns to the only space they ever feared, the inner void. They may try to reach you one last time, writing words that seem repentant, but not to make amends, only to reassure the ego that they still have influence. And when no reply comes, they begin to melt. In the quiet, They slowly realize that power never lay in being loved, but in being worthy of love. Yet the lesson arrives too late, for their soul has hardened after too many cycles of deceit. They begin to feel cut off from the current of life. No inspiration, no aim, no reason to rise each morning. Everything they once used to feel powerful now becomes a burden. The universe doesn't kill them, it lets them become aware of their own spiritual death. And you, the one they once belittled, have stepped into another plane of being. Your silence is no longer a tactic, but the natural state of one who understands. You do not hate, do not fear, do not need to prove. You know that justice doesn't lie in action, but in the balance of the soul. By choosing not to react, you not only protect yourself, you also free them from the illusion that they can control another's life forever. In the end, they will understand no one took their power. They simply lost it trying to clutch what was not real. And you, through steadfast silence, have become the endpoint of karma. You did not defeat them, you returned to yourself. In a world where everything is a reflection, that is the only real victory. No one has to lose for you to be free. While they wander a maze of their own making, you have stepped out, carrying the most sacred lesson the universe wanted to teach. No words are needed to make darkness fall. Light need only stand still, and every illusion dissolves on its own. For them, the most terrifying thing is not losing you, it is having to witness you, walk away, revive, and shine without them. In the narcissist mind, their existence only has meaning if someone depends on them, reacts to them, fears losing them, or strives to be loved by them. When you no longer belong to that frame of reference, you become something they cannot control, a free being, no longer bound to the power game. And that freedom is for them an endless nightmare. They were accustomed to seeing you weak, broken, seeking validation. They believed that if they left, you would collapse, beg, or try to prove your worth to win them back. But instead of collapsing, you went quiet. Instead of searching outward, you turned inward. You healed, learned to stand on your own energy. And day by day, you didn't just survive, you began to shine. Not with the blinding glare of defiance, but with the quiet light of a soul that has come home. At first, they don't believe it. They watch, probe, look for signs you're pretending. They think it's a phase, that soon you'll fall. But when they see you truly at peace, no longer speaking of them, seeking them, or haunted by them, they start to panic. They cannot comprehend how you can be happy when they are no longer the center of your universe. And that incomprehension marks the beginning of their deepest collapse, losing their place in the mind of the one who once reflected their power. For a narcissist, no fear is greater than becoming invisible. They need to be seen, mentioned, remembered. But you, through stillness, have turned them into a nameless shadow. When you walk away, they lose the stage. When you are silent, they lose the script. When you are happy, they lose their identity. Every time they see your smile, hear of your success, it twists like a knife in the fragile ego they hid beneath a costume of confidence. They start inventing reasons. She's faking it. He got lucky. No one changes like that for real. But deep down, they know the truth. You have surpassed them. And that makes them feel exposed, because their entire power structure rests on a single pillar, making others need them. Now you don't. You don't need to be loved, to be proved, to be validated. You live for you, not for them. And that devastates them more than the breakup itself. Your radiance doesn't come from revenge, it comes from alignment with your soul. You aren't trying to appear strong, you have become strong. You aren't trying to forget them. You've learned how to remember without pain. This light doesn't blaze because it challenges darkness, but because it transcends every notion of winning and losing. In this new energy, you no longer emit the signal of a victim, but of a creator, one who chooses the path rather than being dragged by it. What terrifies them most is that they remain stuck in the same old cycle while you have stepped into a different reality. They still replay familiar scripts with new supply, still chase control, still cling to their image. But now it's all meaningless, because the mirror that once reflected their counterfeit grandeur you has vanished. There is no one left to show them to themselves. Sometimes they still try to glimpse you from afar through social media, word of mouth, memories they don't dare face. Each time they see you at peace, it burns like salt in a wound. They realize everything they did to prove themselves only drove them further from what their soul truly craved. Stillness, true love, real meaning. But now, these exist only in you, not in them. When they see your genuine smile, a smile needing no audience, no applause, they feel the distance between two worlds. On one side, a soul awakened, living in harmony with itself. On the other, a soul trapped in the ego's loop. And that distance for them is an unbridgeable wall. This is karma, at its deepest level, not punishment from outside, but imprisonment in the sight of a light they cannot touch. They watch you become the best version of yourself while they remain the old version, repeating the same lesson they refuse to learn. There is no pain greater than realizing you lost what was real while you still had the chance to keep it. You don't need to retaliate, to prove, or to say a word. Your peace is the clearest proof that cosmic justice needs neither sword nor fire, only the light of awareness. And once that light has ignited in you, no one can extinguish it. One day they will realize what they destroyed was not a lover, but the only person who truly saw their soul. But when they understand this, you will already be far away beyond their reach. You do not return, not out of hatred, but because your soul has evolved beyond the plane where they remain stuck. And that is when the real tragedy occurs, not because they lost you, but because they must see you each day in the light of freedom, a reminder that true love cannot be destroyed. It can only be reborn in a heart that knows how to love itself. For you, this journey ends in peace. For them, it never ends. While you move on, they remain where they are, watching a trail of light disappear, one their soul will never again be pure enough to touch.